My name is Davina Ware with The Complete Leader, and we're here with another episode of Ask a Coach. This is where we get information from you, the community, who ask your burning questions about career, work, environment, and leadership from our expert faculty. Today, we have with us Tanja Yardley, who is an leadership and innovation coach who works as a catalyst and a connector for people who harness their talents and networks for positive impact. Tanja, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. It's lovely to see you.
Likewise, we always love what you have to say. Well, we have a question from our community that we'd like for you to answer. And it starts with, I have been working with this company for 4 years and I'm feeling burned out. Maybe burnout isn't the right phrase, but I hear it a lot. I don't have the excitement about the work like when I did when I first started. My supervisor is always very busy and has little time for me other than to give instructions. We meet periodically, but that's usually to get an assignment or to discuss other people's work. I spend so much time on video calls that I rarely get to interact with the other people on my team. I do pretty long work hours, more than 8 a day, and there's rarely any negative feedback about what I'm doing. Even my teammates seem to have lost some of that energy. Is all the bad news right now affecting me? And should I just shut up and do the work? Or should I start looking for a new job? That's a lot, I know.
That is huge. And there are so many good parts of that to dig into, actually. Um, Maybe we'll just tackle it like bit by bit. So I may have to pull you back into it to say, like, what's the next thing? But I know the first thing that I remember hearing is this whole idea of burnout and the idea that she's feeling less excited about the work these days. And it sounds like there are a myriad of factors to me, like being hybrid, working hybrid, having less time with her supervisor and coworkers, having less meaningful conversations with them and less kind of feedback. And that's an area that I have a lot to say about. And also just wondering if some of the ambient energy around the bad news and things going on is just affecting her mood and her mindset. So there are, like, each one of those is its own topic. So I'm going to try to just kind of pick them off in the order that I heard them. And if I miss anything, please just grab me and take me back to it. But I think the first piece is around burnout. It is something that I'm hearing a lot about from my clients, especially the ones that are working in a hybrid situation. So I think that often for people when they're working from home, there's this blurring of lines between their work-related activities and their home activities. And sometimes it feels like the workday, starts early in the morning when they first wake up because their home is now their workplace and goes late into the evenings. And I did hear her say in that email that she's working, longer than regular hours. So that could be one of the factors to dig into. And as a coach, along the lines of burnout, I would probably look at what the contributing factors are and what is, what comes up for her that might be contributing. It could be long hours, it could be lack of boundaries, it could be any number of things. So that would be something worth digging into. The other piece is, she said pretty early on, I'm not as excited about the work as I used to be. So what I often like to do with clients when I'm coaching in that context is to get an idea about what actually lights them up. I often say that my purpose as a coach is to light people up from the inside. And in the workplace where I am, we actually have a phrase for connecting to activities that you'd love to do. We call it red thread. And it's like, if you have a red thread, no matter what you're doing, you want to pull on that thread and keep going. You want to dive into that. Time just becomes irrelevant and you get into the state of flow because you're so curious about something or excited by something. And so, I would want to know more about what it is that she does in her job and whether or not there are some red thread activities. And if not, how to incorporate some of those red thread activities into her work. Because that kind of generates that intrinsic motivation and excitement about doing the work. And also sometimes as a side conversation, we'll look into what their values are So really understanding, what she values and what she needs, and looking at, the match between the work that she's doing and getting her needs met, and also having kind of a purpose-driven values alignment side of things. So that would be another conversation that could be part of a really great coaching conversation. And ironically, I feel like I've had this conversation with quite a few of my clients over the last few months. A lot of people are kind of struggling with where they're at and what they really want to be doing and whether or not it gives them a sense of purpose. So those are two potential contributors. Another potential contributor, based on some of the work that Daniel Pink did and wrote about in his book called Drive, is this whole idea of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And so being in a hybrid environment sometimes can also challenge those things. So looking at, her job, she was saying that she rarely meets with her supervisor except when the supervisor is giving instructions. And so it could be that because she's operating on someone else's instructions, that it doesn't feel like she has a lot of autonomy over the kind of work that she's doing or how she does the work. That's hard to say from an email, but that would be one potential thing to dig into. And then part of that whole tie back to the red thread is the idea of mastery, getting really good at something, growing and learning and, developing yourself. So, mastery and red thread go hand in hand to some degree. And then obviously the values and the purpose side connect. So on that first part of her email, those are some of the directions that I might go as a coach in terms of just digging in and really understanding a little bit more. If it's about burnout and it really is just like a physical energy problem, then we could also explore her sleep patterns and what her nutrition looks like, and whether she's getting exercise and some of these self-care activities. It could also be, because I also work in a brain health environment, health coaching, we could also look at how she schedules her day so that she's doing more of her focused tasks in the morning and more of her creative work in the afternoon, and working with her own natural biorhythms to perform better. So some of those things kind of can help to combat that kind of feeling of not getting things accomplished or feeling overwhelmed or those kinds of things. There's so much there. I could feel my brain jetting off in 55 directions as you were speaking about the email. And so these are, my impromptu responses, or that's probably where I would start.
Yeah.
The feedback piece, I think, is also relevant. Go ahead, Davina.
Actually, you touched right on what I was going to ask you about. It's very interesting that they said there's rarely any negative feedback about what I'm doing. So it makes me think, are they expecting the negative feedback, or they feel like, well, I must not be doing anything wrong, but just the lack of feedback still seems to be a problem.
Yeah, it's interesting because human beings crave feedback. Like, we crave it. We want to know how we're showing up in the world and whether our work is having impact for someone else, or, is aligned to elevating some kind of bigger purpose. And so this kind of chasm of no feedback can be a really awful place to exist. And some of the behavioral research about feedback actually shows that in the absence of feedback, people will sometimes make up a story about their own, or, of their own feedback, but that story is based on their fear, not based on their opportunity. So if you don't hear from your boss for a long time, you are more inclined to think they don't care about me, I'm not doing a good job, or, my work is inconsequential, then I'm doing great. And the reason that no one's talking to me is that I'm doing great. Often it's actually the opposite. So that's something that we have to be really careful about. And then the other thing is that feedback is not kind of one universal thing. There are actually 3 different kinds of feedback. One is appreciation feedback, which is, you're doing a great job, and here's something specific that you did that, made my day better, made our customer's life easier, whatever the case may be. And the more specific when you're giving appreciation feedback, the better. There's coaching feedback, which is about helping someone to grow, expand, master something, deal with a difficult situation, gain more skill sets around a particular kind of problem or direction that they want to go. And then the third type, which is the most difficult and the main reason why performance evaluations are so often dreaded, is evaluation feedback. That's where you're ranking somebody against a set of standards and letting them know whether they measure up or not. And so all three types of feedback have a very important role to play. All have their own challenges in terms of, giving and receiving them skillfully. And certainly I spend a lot of time teaching about that. And so I'm kind of wondering, it sounds like this person is operating in a feedback vacuum. And then there's also just the kind of feedback that comes from being in a social environment and being around your coworkers and chatting, by the water cooler and taking the elevator together and standing in line. Like that's not so much traditional feedback, but just kind of social feedback about our sense of belonging. So when you're working from home, sometimes you really miss out on that.
Absolutely. I didn't even think about the importance of water cooler talk, which
Yeah.
when we're
That sense of belonging is such a crucial part of what makes us happy and makes us feel fulfilled and makes us feel connected. And so, yeah, I think working from home sometimes strips us a little bit of that.
Agreed.
Unless we have good Zoom. Because I work from home, and a lot of my relationships have actually been impacted by the fact that I work from home. But a lot of the really important ones to me have not suffered at all as a result of working hybrid. So I think that you can still have good and meaningful relationships this way, but you have to be really intentional about it.
Very good. So what should be the next step that this person should take? Because they're asking, should I just be quiet? Should I leave? But I feel like there's a solution or a next step that's in the middle of both of
I
those
think
extremes.
the answers to those kind of coaching questions would give really good direction. If there is a red thread in the work, if she can facilitate more interactions with a supervisor that are, have a deeper meaning, or if she can communicate what needs she needs met, like in terms of, this is how much autonomy I need, and this is how much structure or support I need. This is the path from a career development standpoint that I want to follow in areas where I want to grow and master. This aligns with my values and my purpose, or it doesn't. Like those kinds of things will help guide it. And it's interesting because we often wait for our supervisors or our bosses to lean into that more and guide that process. But one of the things that I've really been working with a lot of my coaching clients on is this whole idea that we can model those behaviors. And often there's reciprocity. We can get more skillful at articulating what we need. And we can also model those behaviors with people that report to us or our coworkers, so we can get better at it ourselves. And often as we master it and become more accountable and responsible and take ownership for our own career trajectory, the more our leaders actually get on board with us. So I've actually seen that happen a couple of times where there's a leader that's not so skilled at those things, but as we get more skilled, we have better and more courageous conversations with them, and we learn together. And the standard improves on both sides simultaneously.
Excellent. That is such excellent feedback within itself, and information that I think this person can really take with them and think about, and not feel like that they are on the edge, as it sounded like. Well, Tanja, thank you for being with us today and sharing this great information. That wraps up this episode of Ask a Coach. If anyone has a question for any of our coaches, especially for Tanja, make sure you reach out to us at info@thecompleteleader.org.